Welcome to another episode of the .NET Show. Microsoft's Business Application Platform Initiative is focused on allowing developers to provide applications that meet the financial needs of various types of applications. The Small Business Application Division is taking and writing a special type of application platform that's specifically designed to help small businesses deal with their various financial needs, specifically allowing ISVs such as yourself to write applications easily and efficiently that meet their needs. In today's episode, we're going to talk to some people to help show us how the small business application is a platform that allows you to write applications for businesses that might be too small to have their own IT department or even developers in-house. But before we get to that, let's check in with Erica and the news.
Welcome to the MSDN News Update. I'm Erica Wiechers. On December 1st, Microsoft announced that New Zealand-based Ambient Design Limited, creator of ArtRage, is the $100,000 grand prize winner of the Microsoft Tablet PC Does Your Application Think and Ink contest, a competition challenging developers to utilize the Windows XP Tablet PC Edition Software Development Kit 1.7 to create new applications or ink-enable existing Windows XP-based applications. Interest in the contest attracted 260 global submissions from independent software vendors and 12.5 million visitors to the contest website from March 22nd through August 31st of 2004. Also on December 1st, Microsoft Research, Microsoft's 13-year-old basic research arm, announced that it has selected Bangalore, India, as the location for its third research facility outside the United States. Microsoft Research Lab India Private Limited, scheduled to open in January 2005, plans to employ about 24 scientists, interns, and support staff in the first year. The Bangalore lab joins Microsoft's Redmond, Washington, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, California, Cambridge, England, and Beijing labs in bringing together great minds to build a world-class global research organization with more than 700 scientists on staff. P. Anandan, an internationally renowned researcher in computer vision and video analysis and a 7-year veteran of Microsoft Research in Redmond, will lead Microsoft Research India. In December, Microsoft announced the dates for its next Professional Developers Conference. The next PDC will take place September 13th through the 16th, 2005 in Los Angeles, California. The PDC is the definitive developer event focused on the future of the Microsoft platform. You can sign up now at msdn.microsoft.com/events/PDC for updates on PDC 2005. On December 15th, MSDN launched a new developer center dedicated to Internet Explorer. The new IE Developer Center on MSDN has all the latest information about Internet technologies, including reference material, community resources, and in-depth articles on all aspects of website design and development. Check it out at msdn.microsoft.com/IE. And this has been the MSDN News Update. I'm Erica Wiechers.
Welcome back. And here to talk with us about small business accounting is Christin Boyd and Karan Khanna. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, Christin, you're a technical evangelist at
Yes,
Microsoft. What exactly does that mean, and how does that apply to small business accounting?
So what I do with small business accounting is I'm going to be working with a team of people to help produce a beta program specifically for ISVs who want to build applications with small business accounting.
So it's not necessarily for the accountants out there, but you're actually talking to the people providing them with the tools that they need to get their job done.
Exactly. My program is going to be working with the small business ISVs who want to build applications that help put additions into the product, who build vertical solutions, or do other types of programming to help make the product more specifically tailored to industries and to different types of business that use accounting applications.
Okay. And Karan, what exactly is your role in this?
So I'm the group program manager for this effort. So my team actually develops designs and develops the product itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how long have you been developing this?
So it's been about 2.5 years. And we, once we acquired a company called Navision, we got a lot of the intellectual property from that company. And we've then focused very much in small businesses, understanding the pain points, and then develop the software for them.
Now, can you maybe explain to us a little bit, how does this tool apply to a developer audience? Why should the developers in my audience here be thinking about small business accounting, and how might it apply to them in the tools that they're developing?
Sure. So today, if you look at the small business landscape, every small business has unique needs. So what happens today is that developers and ISVs build software programs which solve the business problems, but the developer has to develop the entire stack, which means they have to understand the needs of the customer, build the vertical solution, and also build some of the core accounting pieces, which is really common across everybody. Things like general ledger, accounts receivable, accounts payable, banking, reporting. And so what the goal for us is to actually provide an application, but also provide a platform where developers can say, okay, I need to build something for the real estate market. I understand the real estate customer very well, but I don't want to build the core GL, AR, accounts receivable, accounts payable, because that's sort of common. That's a well-known commodity problem. So we want to provide that for them and make it easier for them to develop their vertical application tailored to the business.
So I mean, it's kind of like Windows itself is taking, and a developer wants to write a Windows application, focuses on writing the application, not on writing the graphical user interface. And so we're providing the financial accounting interface that someone that really understands the real estate market can then use, and using their core competencies in the real estate market, focus specifically on those things.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very good way to sort of abstract it. We provide the core underlying plumbing, if you will, for accounting, so business applications tailored to the small business. And then you're right. Then ISVs can come and build on top.
Now, how big of a market is this?
So if you look at the market today, there are about 6 to 7 million small businesses, and these are small businesses in the US only, who have work from an office. And if you look at the SOHO market and sole proprietor and the people who work from home, it expands to between 15 and 20 million. So it's a fairly large market in the US.
And when you say small business, how big is a small business?
So the definition we use is about 25 employees or less, and about $5 million or less in revenue. But the other key attribute for this business is that they have no IT infrastructure. So we don't assume that they can have servers and an full-time IT administrator. This is really your small business who are focusing on the business problem, and they may have somebody coming in from the outside like a VAR, or they may have an uncle or some a nephew who's savvy enough, can do some stuff, but they don't have a full-time IT administrator.
So maybe it's just a bunch of laptops in an office, and they're connected to the internet through their cable TV system or something like that.
Yeah, but maybe a few desktops maybe also, but yes, laptops and desktops are connected through Ethernet hub. They don't have to necessarily have a server, and yes, going out to the internet through cable modem or ADSL.
And so these guys, they don't have developers working for them in the most cases.
Yeah,
It's
no,
mostly they're focusing on their core competency, which is going out and selling real estate or doing catering or whatever else they're doing like that.
Or a small doctor's office. I mean,
Okay.
there are a lot of situations where you have a small nonprofit, a small doctor's office, a small chain of dry cleaners in a town. These are all different types of scenarios where small business accounting applies.
Now, traditionally, they would just have to go out and buy a generic accounting package or something like that, maybe even just using Excel spreadsheets for managing their businesses.
Exactly. A large portion of the small businesses out there do not use a store-bought accounting package. They do use Excel spreadsheets. They use the shoebox for keeping their receipts. They use Word and other types of office applications for keeping track of things, such as maybe using Outlook or a basic calendaring application for tracking their billable hours.
Which really isn't what those tools are designed for to a certain extent.
Right, it's not what those tools are designed for, but for the low cost, you want to have low overhead in a small business to make sure that you're maximally profitable. They're using what works for them. And often what happens is then they hire an accountant to come in and make sense of all of their ad hoc recording and turn it into your actual tax solution at the end of the year.
And so what we're doing is taking and enabling someone that has a good knowledge of those business practices. Like, maybe you might be someone that used to run a small dry cleaning establishment themselves and is familiar with all the accounting issues. They can actually form a development team and write software for other dry cleaners to do with things. Or I suppose we can also take and talk with larger ISVs that want to take and push software down into some of these arms. Who are some of the ISVs today that might be providing that sort of stuff?
Well, some of the ISVs who I've talked to have had experience in the larger business aspects of certain verticals. For example, a an ISV who's had company working with the larger, such as Windermere real estate companies, ISVs who have done some work building additions onto eBay. So they've worked with some very large businesses, but they can take that same vertical knowledge and use it to help better manage. Instead of the large real estate issue, now let's handle a landlord who has 2 apartment buildings, or take the knowledge that they have from running a private practice within a hospital environment and now translate it into a small dentist's office. So you can even deal with large ISVs who are building applications for the small business market.
Well, why wouldn't the small business market simply use the same programs that Windermere and other large companies might be using?
Cost is one factor. Your average small business doesn't want to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on a large accounting package that does a lot more than what they need to do. The other aspect is they want to keep it fairly simple. Their business is simple and their technical expertise is simple. Windermere has an IT department. A large hospital has an IT staff. A small business wants to keep things as simple as possible, low cost, and low need for tech support.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, the design point for these large applications is it requires infrastructure, an IT infrastructure, which is very hard for a small business to, which they don't have today. And if they invest in that, then it hits the cost structure. So,
Now, from an architectural standpoint, how deep is .NET tied into this tool?
So this is a fully .NET application. It's starting from the UI layer, which is again .NET using WinForms. The middle tier is all written in C#, and then it uses this. Obviously, this is the .NET runtime. And then for the database, we use MSDE, and we use ADO.NET to talk to MSDE. So it's a full .NET architecture. And then again, the other thing is we factored the objects very well in this. So you can use using .NET. You can use the object browser, look at all the objects, and and we've named them, so it's very obvious as to what the various objects are, how you work with them, etc. So it's a fully .NET architecture.
And that means you can also use Visual Basic or even some other .NET languages, whether it's Fortran or COBOL or stuff like that, to interact with it as well?
Yes, it's language agnostic. So even though we use Visual C#, people could use Visual Basic.NET, Managed C++, or even any of the other .NET languages. So.
And what do you see some of the key benefits that we got out of using .NET in this tool?
For us, the biggest, even for our development team, I can tell you, one of the biggest benefits was just the speed of development. I mean, to develop a fairly complex accounting application, and it's fairly complex, using .NET, it got us, what we found out was the amount of bugs which typically get introduced, things like, memory handling, those sorts of things were just way down when using .NET platform. That is the one advantage. The other thing, the tools are, you can use the tools very well now. It's fairly efficient to use these tools, and it's easy to bring if you bring a new developer in today, it's easy to get them ramped up fairly quickly, understand the object model, understand the .NET tools, and develop and be up and running fairly quickly. So give us a lot of agility to our development team.
And that's just your development team, not even associated with accounting per se, but just actually developing a platform that other people can be developing on top of.
Exactly. So we knew that, okay, if you use .NET, then this is how you do the object model, how you factor the object model, etc. We did have some deep accounting knowledge within certain people to actually get the posting logic right and those sorts of things. But overall, you're right. I mean, the fact that we use .NET gave us that advantage.
Now, did you start out writing a .NET tool here, or did it start out being a non-managed application and then you eventually switch it over to being a managed app?
No, it was fully .NET from the beginning. So it was
Okay.
completely, it's pure in that aspect.
And for your customers, the people that are actually writing applications using small business accounting, what do you see as being some of the key benefits they get out of using .NET?
So, so there are multiple things they can actually do with the application. It's not one thing. So, if all the way you can start, if you just start at sort of the how deep you want to go, let's start at the top. At the minimum, you can just customize the UI, and there's an easy XML-based way to customize the UI. So, if you were writing an application or just customizing our existing application for the doctor's office, you want to, instead of calling them customers, you want to call them patients, you can do that. And that's just a simple XML way. Going to the next level down, if you just write a small managed add-in using .NET, and Visual Studio.NET just provides that out, provides all the infrastructure to do that fairly quickly. You can just hook that into the application, into small business accounting, and just run it within that as an add-in. If you want to go to the next level up, you have your own application, maybe an existing application. You can just then use our object model using again the Visual Studio.NET and then program against our objects to build your own application. So you can go all the way down depending on your needs.
I mean, myself, I'm totally sold on .NET. I'm sure most of my audience is. I just like to hear a little bit of, confirmation people understand, what their own personal experience doing developing using .NET was. Now, to a certain extent, since we've taken .NET, which is a platform, and developed another focused platform on top of that other people can be developing for, this is the sort of thing that describes how other people can do the same sort of aspects with their applications as well, providing multiple different types of development, stepping stones, I guess, for very key focused application models.
Yeah, that's very true, because we were abstracted at one level higher than .NET. We basically put an accounting sort of abstraction on it now. If somebody wants to put more verticalize it and say, okay, you put another layer of abstraction and say, okay, this is just for this particular vertical market, like manufacturing, for example, because they have complex inventory needs, they can do that.
Now, let's say I was a company that was wanting to take and use small business accounting, or let's say I was a small little dry cleaning, and I bought a package from someone that assisted me using small business accounting. Would I also be able to do some stuff on the web with that, or is that purely a smart client-based application?
So it's got links to the web too. So today, just the application itself, it enables online banking, for example. So if you want to do, if you do your bank transfers, if you do downloads of a transaction, you can do that. We use the OFX protocol to do that. We also have hooks to credit card processing. So if you were to take credit cards from your customers and process them, we allow you to do that. The third thing we do have is a payroll, which we provide through web services through ADP, who is a partner of ours in this space. So those are the things you can do. And also, if a developer wanted to write his own add-in and then talk web services out, nothing to stop him from doing that.
Oh, so we can actually connect to brand new style web services based upon how the ISVs are using the tool.
Exactly. They can just put an add-in, a managed add-in, running it within the accounting application, and then make web services call-outs.
So all of these solutions that Karan just suggested were all what you might want to classify as business to business. So from your business with accounting, you would want to go and do business with the credit card firm to verify the credit card and get your payment. Same thing with you would want to call out to a web service for payroll, who will actually cut your checks and send them to your employees or to your contractors. And so those are all features that are built right into the product and can be further extended by ISVs who want to add additional functionality beyond what we offer in small business accounting out of the box.
Yeah. A good example to that is, on an invoice form today, a lot of customers come to us and said, I want to calculate the shipping charges. We don't have that functionality in the application, but some ISVs have come and said, we'll write an add-in, which will make call-outs to FedEx or to UPS or any of the other providers, and then automatically calculate the charge based on the data in the invoice form, and then fill in the charges. So,
or I suppose even things like calculating the tax on things based upon where you're from, what you're buying, who you're buying it for, and stuff like that can be quite complicated and probably even changes from week to week in some places.
That's right.
So that's probably not built into the tool, but someone else can provide that as an add.
Yeah. So I mean, the tax today we have, the end user has to enter the tax rates. The tax engine is there, but you're right. The tax rates get changed quarterly to quarterly. Every time there's an election, it gets changed, right? So that's a good service to provide, which is is a way to automatically update the tax rates. So.
So who are the customers that you're talking to actively in understanding what this tool can do for them?
So we're talking to two different types of customers today. Out on the web, you can go out to the MSDN website and then go /ISV, and then I believe it's also /SBA for small business accounting. And there you can sign up for more information about the small business accounting software as an ISV. By signing up there, you get in our mailing list, and we'll be giving you information throughout the beta phase of the product. In addition to that, we're going to be doing some specially selected ISVs to come in and work very closely with my team, and also through my team, also working with some of the developers and Karan's team to make sure that these ISVs get a head start, that they learn more about the small business accounting SDK, learn best practices on how to work with this product so that they can build these add-ons and vertical solutions. In addition to that, we also have a beta program for end users. We're reaching out to accountants, we're reaching out to small business owners, and offering them early information about the product.
Okay. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of what the core concepts are behind this product. I think maybe it's time to actually take a look at what's possible in using it. So I understand you've got like a demo ready to show us. So after a short break, we'll take a look at that demo.
Okay.
So hopefully that gave you a good insight of what the small business accounting application is and how it can provide a platform for developers for writing applications that their customers then use. After the short break, we'll take a look at what some of these applications look like to show you more in depth what you can do with this application.
Scott, Chris, and Tracy, 3 developers alone, 1 laptop, limited battery time, and the unknown in a dark warehouse. What happens when all these elements are put together in one zone? The code room.
Read the directions, man.
Oh, who the hell expects us to read specs?
Get up, I haven't sat down. I'm going to do this one.
You can't just kick me
I
out of the
haven't
developer
sat
seat.
down yet.
No, you want to do one thing at a time.
Okay, screw it.
I think we're doing well. I think we're doing well.
Welcome back. Now we're going to take a look at the developer platform capabilities that Small Business Accounting has. Now, joining me again, I have Christin and Karan here to talking about how Small Business Accounting can help us with our development problems. Now, Karan, you've got a really good demo you've written up for us using Visual Studio, interacting with Small Business Accounting and actually integrating some accounting features into this application.
Yep, that's correct. So, like you said, I've written a Visual Studio, small Visual Studio.NET based in C# application, and what I wanted to show you was how easy it is to actually integrate with our SDK. So what I'm going to show you is a third-party application written by me, which uses the SDK, logs in to the accounting application, which you call an instance, creates a customer, pulls up a list of items, which is there in the accounting application, and then actually creates an invoice against those items. And so let me go ahead and show that to you.
Okay.
What I have already populated here, it's pointing to, is telling me which is the database you're using and which is the company in the database, because in the what the accounting application does allow you to have is multiple companies within the same database. So I'll first do the instance and I'll show you the code behind it. So if I do log on at this point, it goes ahead and logs on to the instance of Small Business Accounting. So let me go ahead and show you the code behind it. What I've done here is, this is again in Visual Studio.NET, written in C#.
But it could have been in Visual Basic as well.
It could have been in Visual Basic or any of the .NET languages. So here, the call I made when I click the logon button, as you can see, the logon button click event, and it called make instance and log on. So if you look at that function itself, all I had to do was I have an instance which is null, and I said a new small business instance object. So I call the object, and then I just call the logon method within that object, and I passed it the database name and the server name. It's as simple as that. So now at this point, I've actually logged on to the instance of Small Business Accounting.
No, from a login standpoint, you're not logging with a username password model. This is basically logging on and creating a connection.
Exactly right. Yeah. This is integrated Windows authentication. So if I wrote an application, I would have to be logged on to Windows, and then my Windows credentials get passed on. That's the other good thing about this application, is that it's integrated Windows security, and all the securities at the database level. So even if you come with any other application like an Excel or an Access application, only if you're allowed to connect to the database can you get in there. So it's very secure in that way. It doesn't have application level security.
So essentially, if you've got multiple users using the same system, who they logged into at the Windows level when they first booted up the machine and got into it, that's going to define what their capabilities are in actually using SBA.
Exactly correct. Okay. Exactly correct. So I've logged on now. So let me go back to my little applet I wrote. And I have Robert Hess as the customer. Let me go ahead and create the customer. But before I do that, I want to show you the accounting application itself, because we are sort of operating as two clients to this accounting application. So here's the accounting application. You can see the dashboard here. Let me show you the list of customers. So here you're seeing the list of customers. So I have 4 customers here right now, and I don't have Robert Hess here. So let me go ahead and click Create Customer. So at this point, it's going on and creating the customer within the accounting application.
So what we're seeing here on the front of the screen, this is your Visual Studio code, and behind that, we're actually seeing SBA
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So let me go back and close SPA because it gets a little confusing. You're right. So at this point, I have created a customer in SPA, and SPA is just a way for me to see it. Now, let me go ahead and show you the code behind it, and then I'll show you what happens in accounting application itself. So if I come back here, scroll up here. So here, what I did was this is it's the customer file button click. So that's the click event I tied to. So it first said, if you look at the code itself, it said, get customer account by name. Is there an existing customer with this name? And if it's not, that's what I'm checking for that. I just said, I have the instance already, which I've got when I logged in. So on the instance, I call the create customer account method, which I've done here, as you can see. Once I've got, then I've got a customer object. So the instance now returned me a customer object. And on that object, I have set the name property, and I've done a save on it. So it's as simple as that. 3 lines of code for me to actually log in, create a customer, and save a customer. So let's see if the customer did get saved, because I go back to the accounting application. And here we have now Robert Hess as a customer, which has been created.
I've got a zero balance there.
That's correct. You got zero balance there. Until you buy something from me, it's not going to go up. So let me go to the next step, which is to actually select an item. So now it's going to log on. It's already logged on. It's going to show you the list of items, which is there in the accounting application, and then allow you to create an invoice against it. So when I click select item, it's giving me a list of items which is there. And these are inventory or service items a business is selling. Let me just select repair services. I say OK. And that's the item which is going to go in the invoice itself.
Now, so far, what we've seen is just simply, visually to me anyway, it looks like just adding records to a database and reading records out of a database.
True.
I haven't really seen any accounting capabilities happening. This is something I could do with ADO.NET already today. But now we're getting into the invoice. This is where we're going to actually start getting into some more of the accounting capabilities that where SBA is really showing its stuff.
Exactly. So what I'm going to do is now when I create the invoice, it's going to add the line item to the invoice and actually post the invoice to the using posting engine to post it down into the accounting application. And then I'll show that invoice to you with all the business logic which is there. So I'll just hit create invoice. And at that point, the invoice is actually created. Let me show you the code behind it, and then I'll show you the invoice actually in the accounting application. So what I did was at that point, here's the item select button, which is exactly as you stated. It just goes into the database, pulls out the list of items here. I'm going through the object model here. So I'm saying, create a new item list, fill the item list box with the instance, and then show the dialog. And then when you want to show, hit the invoice, so here's the create invoice button, which was clicked. So what I did was I got the, again, I made sure I got the customer name, exactly the same function call I had made earlier. At this point, I say I have the instance. I just say call the create sales invoice object. So I call that method. I get the sales invoice object. On that object, I set the property of the customer account. Then within that invoice typically has line items of the things you want to sell or what you're invoicing for. So here I have line items for the various line, and on the line items I added the service or which I'd selected, and then I did invoice.save. And at this point, if there were any errors, like business logic errors, it would have bubbled back to me and I would have to handle it. In this case, it was fairly simple. So that's how I actually got the invoice object, set the properties on it, and saved it. Now let me go ahead and show you what happens the list of invoices. So I'm back here within the small business accounting application. Here's this list of invoices, and I just created the invoice for Robert Hess. Let me bring up the invoice itself. So here's the invoice, and all the business logic is here now. So this has been posted to the journal. If I bring up a balance sheet or a profit and sales report, it will show up there now. So here are the repair services which I added programmatically, and it picked up the unit price, etc. If there were any sales taxes, if there were any payment terms, they would all apply here. So the business logic would have applied here. And during the invoice creation and save, if you had some errors there, you would have caught at that point. So so this is how you go ahead and do it. So as you can see, just about 6 or 7 lines of code allows an ISV to actually have use the full function of an accounting application. Create a customer, create invoices, and now I could receive payments. I could post it to a bank account, and I can do all that. And again, just a few lines of code allows you to do that. So that's that's one class of applications an ISV can develop, which is having your own full application, but using our platform as a general ledger, accounts receivable, accounts payable. There's a second class of applications which is just using Microsoft Office application and using the Visual Studios for Office, Visual Studio tools for Office, Visto tools to actually program against the object model. And I'll want to show that to you next.
Okay.
So a different class of application is an Office application where it actually uses the same SDK to actually talk to the accounting application. So let me show that to you. So what I have here is I have Microsoft Excel. Let me show you the fully built application, which is using a Visual Studio's tools for Office and then integrating with the SDK. So what I've done with this application is I've added a menu item, as you can see here, called SPA integration. And this application based in Excel gives you the ability to add customers, vendors, or accounts, like income, expense, those kind of accounts, into the accounting application. So let me go ahead and actually do the operation first and then show you the code which actually made that happen. So I have 3 customers on my customer tab in Excel. So if I hit add customers, it's first asking which company do you want to add it to, because within small business accounting you can have multiple companies. So select Acme Inc. and I say open. So at this point the code is churning through, it's logging on, and it's actually added the customers. So I'll bring up the accounting application and show that to you. So I have High Vermont Skiing, Fresh Vegetables, and Good Lawyers as customers. I would go back here and you would see that High Vermont Skiing, Good Lawyers, and Fresh Vegetables have been added as customers. So let me go back into the code and show you what made that happen. So here now I created a project, and VisualStudio.net makes it very easy. You just have to select an Office project using the wizard, and it generates a skeleton for you. And then within the skeleton, you can write the code to actually integrate with small business accounting.
And so this is code that's actually running within the context of Excel using VSTO.
That's exactly correct. So VSTO, once you've written the code, Excel would load this DLL and then use that to talk to the accounting application.
Okay.
So it's all within the Excel worksheet itself. So here, first thing I do in the code is add the menu item called SPA integration, which you saw in Excel. So here, again, there's some just standard way to access the Excel object model and add the command bar with the appropriate menu items. So I've done that in the first section of the code itself. Then what I do is go ahead and do the exact same operation I did last time in my standalone application, which is to log on. So here I have, if you come back here and see, I say if it's not connected, is SPA connected? If it's not connected, I say make instance and log on, which is exactly the same function call I made last time, which allows me to log on and get the instance. Once I've done that, then I come and click the add. I click the add customer button. Here's the add customers to SBA. That's the menu item I clicked. And so here's just to walk you through some of the key pieces of this code here. So I've got the instance. This is the SBA instance object I've got. I said create customer account. So I've got the customer account. Then I go ahead, walk the Excel sheet, get the various values from the cells in Excel, and assign it to the various properties on the customer object.
So in this case, you're actually essentially got the cells hard-coded in there where you kind of know exactly where that's going to be at. But you could have used named ranges or something like that instead and had the Excel spreadsheet set up in special ways. So the code does not have to specifically know that in row 1, column 3, and stuff like that's where the information
Exactly correct. Yes, yes. If you want a more generic version, that's exactly the right way to do it, which is to use name ranges and then use the name ranges here. So that gives more flexibility to the customer within Excel itself. So go ahead, set the various properties on the object itself, and then once I've done that, I can now go ahead and hit the save button here at the end when I've done that, and I hit the customer.save here. It goes ahead and saves the customer. And so that allows me now I have the ability to have hundreds and thousands of customers within my Excel spreadsheet and then move that into the accounting application. And a lot of people have the accounting data in Excel. This provides them the ability to move it into the accounting application. Going back to Excel, I have exactly the same way to do vendors. So, which is just sort of the mirror image of customers. So here I have a list of vendors with different properties. Typically, a vendor has different properties. But again, I would do exactly the same operation, get the instance, get the vendor object, set the properties, and save the vendor object. And then finally, yet the other one I have is accounts. So the chart of accounts. So you have certain types of chart of accounts like income, expense, sales, liability, those sorts of things. And this allows me to go ahead, create account numbers, give them a name, and then go ahead and save it and create new accounts within SBA. So quickly, let me show you the code for that. That's a little different than vendor and customer. So here is the add accounts to SBA. And then there are different types of accounts the accounting application has. It has a financial account, it has a bank account, it has a credit card account, and you could have additional types of accounts. So here what I do is go ahead and create the various objects of those types. And then I again get the instance, which I already have for the accounting application. And then based on the type of account the user has selected, be it income, other income, expense, etc., I create the financial account type, get the object. Once I've got that object has the various properties on it. I go ahead and set the properties on the objects. For example, I set the display number, I set the name. And once that's done, I can go ahead and save the account itself. So again, the patterns are very similar here. Again, but .NET allows you to use very similar patterns which are very familiar, which is to go, once you get the instance, get the object, set the properties on it, and you can go ahead and check the business logic against it if you want to, and handle the appropriate exceptions which come back, and then go ahead and save the object. So the patterns are very similar. But again, this shows you how you can use Excel to go ahead, use the object model. Now, the other ways you can also use Excel and Access to go directly against the database if you like. We don't recommend changing the schema, but if you were to build a reporting application using Excel or Access, you can go directly against the MSTE database, against the tables and our views, get the data, and then integrate it with other data you may have to create a fairly rich reporting application. So you have that ability to using Office-based applications.
So SBA is simply talking to an MSTE database. And so I don't necessarily have to go all the time through SBA to get to the database. I can actually go to the database directly.
Exactly correct. Assuming that you have logged in with your right credentials into the Excel or Access application, again, because the authentication is done at, it's Windows authentication and the access control is at the database level. If you have the permission, you can go directly against the database. You can go against our views, our tables, our triggers, and just go and get that information. So you have the flexibility too.
So that adds awful lot of power to the capabilities I think you have capable tools. So you're not really limited by the capabilities that SBA felt you might be needing. You've now got a full access to a full rich database, and anything you might want to do with that. You're just going to be bypassing some of the accounting logic that SBA has built into it.
That's exactly correct, yes.
And again, that's only if you have the right credentials.
Right.
There are 5 different roles within the product, and only if you happen to have the rights to be able to go in there and pull information directly out of the database can you view those reports.
Right.
So if you happen to have an employee and you don't want that employee to be able to access all of the payroll information and see how much everybody in the company is earning, you just don't give that employee that role within the application, and then that person will never be able to get to the data.
So we're essentially using Authorization Manager as being the way we control access through SBA to the database, so that applies to the entire product no matter where you're accessing it at.
Exactly.
And in our previous episode, we actually talked about Authorization Manager and how that utilized providing access to information at that level, and eventually it's actually using ADSF, allow through Active Directory Federation services, scoping that out to larger domains across company boundaries as well.
Yeah, so the thing is we do use integrated Windows authentication here. The roles itself, which Christian talked to, are actually defined by within the application, and we map to SQL roles here. So we create SQL roles for an accountant, for an office manager, for an employee, or a read-only role, for example. And then based on that, based on how you logged in, and based on the role which is there, you can either have access to the data or not have access to the data.
Now, when we start talking about some of these richer roles and stuff like that, the notion arises of having a business that grows over time and eventually becomes bigger. We've already mentioned this is intended for a small business, 25 employees or less perhaps. What happens when I turn from a 25 employee business to a 100 employee or 1,000 employee business? Can this product scale with me to allow me to continue using it, or what do I have to do to move across?
So we recommend that since the design point for this product was purely small businesses, and we wanted to make sure we solve 100% the needs of the customer in that segment. But we do have solutions which scale up. Great Plains is one of our solutions, and then Navision is another solution, and then Exapta is a third one, which are more targeted towards the mid-market space, which have more complex, which can scale to multiple, many users with staging tables, etc. And we will migrate the data from this application to the mid-market applications like Navision, Great Plains, and Exapta. So that's what we recommend.
So there's a migration policy that allows us to take and move across as the businesses grow, but the application itself isn't designed at the current time to address the needs of a large server infrastructure with lots of users and stuff like that.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So moving forward, where do you see the future of this application going?
So for us, the application itself, the goal is to provide, at the end of the day, the goal is to provide twofolds. One, like Christin said earlier, one is to make sure that the small business has a full suite of functionality they can use, at least at a base level, to solve the business needs. And then we hope that ISVs will build solutions targeted towards the various verticals on top of this. That's one. We will continue adding additional functionality in the plumbing itself, so that the ISVs don't feel the need that it satisfies the needs of the ISV. That's one. And we'll add functionality just in terms of give it more web services and those sorts of things to make sure that it's a rich platform on which to build on. That's going forward is sort of the thing. And the other axis where we're going out is obviously geographically. We are going to go out internationally. And going out internationally, we have to be cognizant of the rules of the various countries and sort of encode that into the product. So we're doing that now.
Now, Christin mentioned that we were in the beta phase right now of this application. When does it actually come out into the market for real?
So the plan is in the first half of next year you would have the application available. Okay. But right now it's in beta right now. So.
Okay. And if people are interested in actually doing development against SBA, where is the best place to go for information about the tools and documentation and sample applications?
Well, the first place for them to go for information is the website that I mentioned earlier. And the website is msdn.microsoft.com/ISV/SBA for small business accounting. And there you can get on our newsletter, and we'll send you updates and information throughout the beta phase about the product. The other good way to get more information, if you're an ISV and you're very serious about building on this product, talk to your local Microsoft person. No matter where you are in the country, you'll be able to look up on the Microsoft website, where is your local sales and consulting office? Get in contact with somebody there and say, I would really like to be involved in the beta program for small business accounting. And through that direct Microsoft contact, you'll be able to get more information and possibly get involved in the program that I'm running, which involves a lot of training and really helping an ISV build and launch a product.
I mean, I think what we've got here, it looks pretty exciting, especially since it's focused on the smaller user, the smaller ISV. It's not meant for the big, gigantic conglomerates. It's not something that Boeing would necessarily be doing stuff with, or some of the big application developers like Lotus or whatever and stuff like that. It's actually more of a grassroots thing to me, which I think it's kind of exciting, because that's where a lot of us come from, is from the small little mom and pop development houses that are just having fun with stuff. I remember back in the days when everyone was developing spreadsheets that were specifically targeted at particular applications and adding macros to it and stuff like that. And this is just taking it to the next level on top of that.
Absolutely. Every business started small. Microsoft started small. We all want to go somewhere. So I think it's excellent that you asked the question of what's the migration path, because so many small business owners have the dream of having a huge multi-million-dollar company. So we do offer both an excellent product for the price point, so that you can afford a good accounting application, even if you're a very small business on a tight budget. And you do have the migration path when your business does really take off, so we can take you there.
Great. Well, thanks for joining me. I'll make sure that I post in the transcript any links to the documentation or information about the different programs available to people, so they can always find out where it's at going on. And if you have any other documents and URLs you think I should add to that, just make sure you send me that email to it. And I'll also include the code fragments that we showed within the demonstration. Okay. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
So hopefully this provided you some insights of small business accounting and how it's focused at providing application developers the capabilities of developing accounting-based applications for their customers. Thanks for joining me.
With me today is Hillel Cooperman. He is Product Unit Manager of the Windows User Experience team at Microsoft. Hillel, welcome.
Hi.
So Hillel, why don't you tell us what it's like to be a PUM at the Windows User Experience team, what that means exactly?
I basically tell a lot of people what to do and take credit for their work.
Right on.
When they do good things, I take the credit. When they do bad things, I blame them. That's essentially the job.
So what's the charter and the focus of your team? What are some projects you guys work on specifically?
I am very lucky in that, well, whatever you like or don't like about the Windows user interface, I have a team that is in large part responsible for a big chunk of that. So if you don't like how it works, you can blame me. And it's, you know, things like the start menu, the taskbar, the folders, all that kind of stuff. That's basically what we busy ourselves with every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I assume you're pretty busy with the next version of Windows.
Yes, a big chunk of my team is busy. Almost all my team is working on Longhorn right now.
Okay.
And that's been a long effort, but it will be well worth it. We're working hard.
What are some of the bigger challenges you're facing right now?
I think that, you know, there's, you know, at Microsoft, we're trying to, I think that we've constantly gotten better at building user experience. And I think that we take a kind of interesting holistic approach to it where it's neither all from the gut nor is it all scientific and measurement. It's a combination of both and experience. And I think that it's kind of a funny thing. I think we're still learning about it at this company. On the one hand, we're very comfortable with things that are very measurable, right? And on the other hand, a major part of making a great user experience is making people feel good, right? It's, you know, it's a real funny thing. Sometimes it doesn't matter whether the user finished the task faster or whether they even could finish it all. Sometimes they might fail and feel good about the product. Now, I'm not suggesting that we design our experiences so that people fail, but ultimately, the real goal is that they walk away and say, thank God I got a Windows PC. It sure helped me in my life do something. It helped me do something great. It improved my life somehow, improved what I was able to accomplish in my life somehow. And to be able to measure that is a very difficult thing. And to be able to then not only try and measure it somehow, but then translate it into action in terms of the user interface that we deliver is really difficult. And ultimately, it's not just about the user interface we deliver, but about providing tools and platform and components so that other people can make great Windows software that makes our shared users feel great.
Right.
So that's a pretty big challenge for us. I think Microsoft's just learning how to do it still.
Right. So other than the general user, does your team focus on accessibility issues and how to design for that?
There's a separate team that does not work for me that is focused really on accessibility end to end. But we take that stuff very seriously, and we, you know, we find that there's all sorts of double benefits in terms of when we design for a variety of different users with different skill sets. Because, look, you may target a user that is a novice in terms of skill set, and you may end up with something that's a lot simpler. People who are advanced don't mind things that are simple. In fact, they appreciate them just as much as someone who is maybe not as facile with the system. People who are advanced want power and efficiency and stuff like that. So designing for a broad range of users, whether it's that they have, you know, limited skill sets or limited experience or different challenges in terms of how, you know, just their physical abilities or whatever it happens to be, or even for different cultures and stuff like that, I think in the end makes them more robust and forces you to be more creative about the design of the software. And I think it's, even though we have a separate team focused on it, I think it's something that our team kind of does is second nature to a certain extent. And luckily we have the accessibility team constantly educating us and reminding us when we slip up and don't.
Right. So what other jobs have you done at Microsoft?
So before working on Longhorn on the Windows UI team, I spent a couple of years in MSN working on a product called MSN Explorer,
okay.
Which was a browser for MSN. And then before that, I did more work on the Windows shell team. And before that, I shipped a couple of versions of Internet Explorer for the Macintosh. I've been a Microsoft employee for 7.5 years and a Windows user for 6.5.
Okay. That's right. So what are some of the differences between just the orgs and the teams working on Macintosh versus Windows?
Well, the Mac team has changed a lot and gotten a lot more consolidated and focused since I was there way back when. But I actually don't think there really are any differences from my experience, having worked in both places. To me, the differences came more from the fact that I worked down in San Jose for a while, and this is before we even had a campus in Silicon Valley. So all the Silicon Valley employees were spread out in multiple offices, and I was in this little office called MS Bay, which did Mac Internet software, and it wasn't even. We had a separate group up in Redmond doing Mac Office, except for PowerPoint, which was also down in a different spot. It's all over the place. But in any case, the point is the groups that were working on Mac software up here and still do, really, they're just like any Microsoft group, you know.
Right. So are you
In a good
originally
way.
right? So are you from the Bay Area?
No, I'm from Boston.
Okay.
Yeah, I spent a year and a half in Silicon Valley. I came out, worked at another little startup. I worked at a little software company in Boston, then a little software company down in south of Silicon Valley, then a few months at Microsoft down there, and then decided that, you know, to really do the kind of things I want to do at Microsoft, the exciting stuff that I wanted to do, not that there isn't exciting stuff down there, but stuff that I want to do was up here, and that's where I ended up.
Cool. So what are some things you like to do outside of work?
Let's see. Outside of work, I like to play with my kids. You know, not too much. I like them and all, but you know, you can only spend so many hours with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old before you go out of your mind. And then, just kidding. And then after we've gotten a good allotment of time with family, let's see. I like to travel, like to eat. Have a little wacky food website on the side, stuff like that.
So can you talk about your website?
I can. Oh, I'm sorry.
But will you?
Yes. I'm just being silly. Let's see.
What's it called?
It's called tastingmenu.com. And basically, so me and a bunch of friends would always go out to eat, and we would go out to a bunch of different places, and we would forget what we ate, where, what we liked, what we didn't like, and we kind of needed to document it somehow. And so being nerds, Microsoft employees, obsessive, we started to write it down in detail and thought, you know, we should really put this somewhere we can all access. They got this thing called the web. Seems like a good place. So it turned into this kind of blog thing. And actually, I counted the other day. I've done probably 444 entries in the last 2.5 years across, let's see, the countries have been US, Canada, Korea, Japan, France, England, Israel, Italy. I think that's it so far.
Those are all the places that you have eaten
Eaten
and
and
read about?
documented, and there's about 1,600 food pictures up there as well,
That's great.
which everyone keeps stealing. I find them used all over the internet. Again,
I've seen some of them. It's like good stock photography.
Yeah, for free. What's going on here?
You need to
I got
put
some copyright information.
You need to
in
put a
there.
watermark on them.
Yeah, so it's gotten pretty obsessive and crazy, but you know, we had I think 70,000 unique visitors last month, so that's not bad. I mean, it's no MSDN certainly, but it's
really
not
good.
bad.
Has that been your best month so far?
It was our best month.
That's great.
Yeah, it'll do.
Now, I did hear that your site was nominated for a James Beard Award.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
I can and I will. Not to be a jerk this time. Let's see. So James Beard, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically, he was this food guy, and they created this foundation that now is going through all kinds of issues. But in any case, the point is they have this awards, and it's kind of like the Academy Awards of food. And they break it down into 2 categories, journalists and then people who actually cook. Like, so instead of, you know, the people who can't do, so they write about it, you know, kind of like me, and then the people who actually do something of value, which is the cooking. So in any case, so I got nominated for this article I wrote on trying to find a good bagel in Seattle, which is impossible, and then finding a good bagel in Toronto, of all places, and trying to recreate it, and going through 50 iterations of a recipe to try and come up with the perfect recipe to recreate this bagel that I wished I had. And in fact, if you search on the net, the #1 search result for bagel recipe is my my recipe. Thank you.
Really? That's
Yeah.
great.
And actually, the funny part about the James Beard thing is, so these are all professionals here. I'm just a bum at Microsoft. What do I know about food and writing and all that stuff? But so I go to the award ceremony, and I told myself, like, it was in New York, and they had like the woman who was the national security advisor on West Wing for several seasons. She was like the MC, so there was like sort of famous people there, and like all these like food people, and like a fancy hotel. And I go in there, and people are kind of dressed up. I'm not, but and so I'm like telling myself, I'm not going to win. I'm not going to win. I'm not going to win. I just know I'm not going to win. And then it finally got to announcing this award, and I didn't win. And I was crushed. I couldn't believe it. I kept telling myself that I knew I was going to win, trying to prepare myself, but I was absolutely like stricken, just crushed by not winning. I was despondent.
Well, you got nominated. That's a good honor.
Yeah, I suppose. But no, it really didn't feel that way. You know how they always say it's an honor just to be nominated? It did not feel that way. But it really, in retrospect, now with the benefit of hindsight, it feels like it was an honor. I actually had a friend videotape me so I could watch like me trying to mask my unbelievable disappointment with a fake smile at losing.
That's great.
I haven't had the
Well, you
guts
might
to
get
look at it.
nominated again, so you got another chance coming up.
Maybe, probably not, but maybe.
So what are some of your favorite restaurants in Seattle?
I have two favorite restaurants in Seattle. One of them is a restaurant called Lamprey, which is, in my opinion, I don't even think Seattle knows what it's got in that restaurant. It's just, in a way, it's this guy who's the chef there, and he just really is very focused and has a very high standard and is just trying to make something special. And I don't think most people in Seattle realize how good it is. And to a certain extent, what I love about his food is, and this may sound corny, but I try to express it in my work at Microsoft. Like, I try to hold the same kind of standards and have the same kind of dedication, passion, and commitment to, like, this is, I work on the Windows user experience. Hundreds of millions of people use it, and there's plenty of room for improvement. And as much as I love all the great things about it now, there's also lots of good stuff we can add to it. And I try to bring that same dedication and passion that I see that he and other kind of chefs that I interact with bring to their work every day, where they're lucky in that they get this very direct impact, right? They make something, and then they give it to a person. They can see whether the person had a positive experience or not. And for me, I try to make something, but it's through, we got thousands of developers and program managers and testers and Salesforce, and it takes a couple of years to get the thing out the door till you can finally see if the person, quote unquote, eating it has a positive experience. Yeah. So it's a little more indirect, but it's the same principle essentially. The other restaurant that I really, there's not as many as there should be, but there's a few good ones. But another one that's really just superlative and beyond the standard, I think, is a place called Nishino, which is, I think people take for granted. They think it's just, it's an excellent neighborhood sushi place, but actually it's more than that. I think it's probably the best Japanese food on the West Coast, at least.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What part of town is that?
Madison Park.
Okay.
And Lamprey's in Belltown. Yeah.
That's great.
You should go.
Well, excellent.
All right.
What are there things that you want to do to your website to expand it? Are you just going to basically just keep the blog aspect, or?
Robert, isn't there some .NET technology I need to employ to make my website better?
I'm sure there is.
I'm sure there is. Eventually, I'm going to rewrite it with an Avalon front end. I don't know. You'll be able to like pick the ingredients and do some cool I don't know what we're doing. The thing that we did most recently is we put out an electronic cookbook. So, and this is, another kind of, it's so funny that I'm on MSDN talking about my food website, but all right.
It's the idea.
Okay, it's all good. It's to show that the Microsoft employees are really human beings.
Yes.
We're not just drones. Okay, good. My chip is beeping wildly. Let's see. We put out a cookbook, an electronic cookbook that's actually with the chef at Lamprey. And it's kind of funny because it's one meal, one tasting menu, in fact. So it's only 8 recipes, but they're done in obsessive, crazy, psycho detail. So it's kind of like, how can I say this on MSDN? I think that a lot of people buy cookbooks not necessarily to make the food, but to see how really good food is made. And they read them even if they never cook from them. Like, it's not the goal to cook for them. Now, you can cook from ours. In fact, I claim it's one of the best ones to cook from because the detail is so incredible. Typically, especially if you get food that's kind of complicated or high-end, you'll get a cookbook that it's kind of got this, and listen, take a lesson for our SDK samples. You get a picture of what the thing's supposed to look like at the end. And there's 327 steps. Right? And if you screw up step 57, you don't know till the end when it doesn't look anything like the picture. So we actually have almost a video done in stills of every step of the recipe till you get to the end. So you know if you screwed it up halfway through, you know right away you screwed it up. And then, and it's kind of very cool. And there's sort of, we had this backstory, the making of the book, and we have the story of the chef and the restaurant. And we, let's see, it's 8 recipes, 100 pages, 300 photos.
Wow. How long does that all take to make, do you think?
Now, we weren't working full time because we have this, day job thing, which is primary, of course. Hey, boss. We put in, it took a year to make the book. And actually, the 300 photos were culled from about 5,000 that we took. And we actually have a whole bunch of video footage that we haven't even done anything with that we're going to edit and put up, and we're working on it. We're figuring it out. But we had thousands of downloads of the book, and people seem to like it, and it's cool.
That's great. I'll have to check it out.
It's fun.
Can all be done in a day, roughly, maybe, or just a span over a couple days to do all that?
You'll need help because we did it. To test the recipes, we make the food. And in fact, it's pretty high pressure because we don't just make the food, but we make it and then have the chef who invented it come over and eat it to see if we did it right. So it takes more than a day. Let's put it this way. It's not easy to do it, but it is possible. And if you want to, it's all laid out for you. But you don't have to do the whole meal. You just do one recipe. There's a few that are actually pretty straightforward and simple and delicious.
Yeah. That sounds great. Let's check it out. Well, hello. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the .NET Show.
And stay tuned for the next episode on SQL Server 2005.
And until then, we'll see you on the web.